fishing set I've ordered. I will. I am here. People are here. I forgot to share the stream. Let us share the stream.
Share it across multiple Discords. Irish Legion, Calibre Corps, all of them.
But Matt, that is a good point.
And if you want all the other new Discords you dragged me into.
I've only gotten you into one.
You got into like 7. Low ball it, high ball it. High ball.
One. I've gotten you into one.
But I love that Discord.
My door? My window? Okay, I'll open up my window. Look, everybody can see me opening up my window.
He said a window. Couch flop on, or if he's still playing his game.
Okay, there we go. I just asked people in general. Okay, where are we? Here we are. Now we're back. Hi, everybody. Hello. Yes. Hi.
Hello.
Look at the camera. Look at the camera quality. Wow, I look hideous.
Is this your new camera? I like it.
Yes, this is the new camera. This is the Dragon Touch 4K Ultra HD Vision 3. And I'm just... Jeez. I'm just sitting here with Matt and Bryce, and my new fishing set.
Which will move the stream to today so we could all be here.
Yes, because Bryce is a good Christian boy and he goes to church on Wednesdays. I'm going to be honest, it's hard not looking down at the screen, but instead at the camera. It's really hard. I need to like put a face or something on the camera.
Good idea.
So I'm like talking to somebody. Put like Dr. Phil's face or something. I want to talk to Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil sounds nice.
I should wait a few minutes before the people show up before we start. Did you repost?
I did. You know what? I'm going to do it here too.
Many of our viewers will be upset if they miss their daily dose of red. Oh.
Because I'm a mad lad like that. And Core's got a video or something going.
Yeah, but yeah, Civil War, you know? Make me talk about it consistently. Wonder why? We might be nuts. We are nuts. Matter of fact, we are.
Can you guys hear the movie?
What movie?
Okay, good. Never mind. They can't hear the movie.
They will. What movie?
There's a movie. But there's something really cool now that I'm actually going to start the live stream now. We've given people enough time. Okay. But, yeah, something special about the fishing set here is this is going to be part of a video, and it's going to be the first video sponsored by my patrons on Patreon.
Oh.
Yes, which is very kind of them to do in the first place. It's very sweet and very kind of them. I appreciate it very much. Fuck is that's Vince Vaughn. Whoa. Yeah, but thanks to my patrons, I was able to get this incredible fishing set and a few extra hooks. And I might try to set one of these up using my fishing expertise and what equipment I have here while Matt and Bryce talk about whatever it is they're going to talk about. They're more the this happened today historians. I figure myself more of a tactical or weaponized historian, if that makes sense.
Not really.
Okay, it doesn't. More the weapons of the times.
Red is the loud and proud, and Bryce and I are the think it out.
This is true. This is true. But I'm also, and I'm not being bold when I say this at all, I'm also the most outdoorsy of us three. Like outdoorsman, survivalist man. I can live. Sure. Shut up. That's a yes. You're supposed to support me, Matt.
I will support you to an extent. I will not be a blatant yes man.
Yes,
I sense treason. I smell treason.
Bryce, are you trying to be a kiss ass now?
No, that's Bryce. That's off. No, thank you.
But yeah, so I got my knife here, one of my new knives. Just got it last week, actually. I'm not touching the blade at all because it's sharper than shit. I ain't gonna prove it to you. Let's get up on the camera. That is one of the best sharpness tests you can do on a blade, is shave the hair off of your arm. And let's see if you guys can, but yeah, look, there's plenty of hair on the blade. Good test, good sharp. Hey, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. But while they talk about their thing, I'm going to be getting one of these set up and listening along with you guys and relaying messages to the podcast because I'm tired. So Red is the runner of this live stream. Wow,
You set yourself up for success right there.
That was accidental. Well,
Beautiful.
I will be me, Red. I am very tired, so I will be running this in this podcast. And fun fact, my birthday is 3/28. So yeah.
What's your favorite color while we're doing introductions?
See, I don't want to say that because then I'm contradicting my own YouTube channel.
It's blue. I know it is. Isn't it?
Yes, it is. My favorite color is a very light blue, like very, very close to Union blue. Like, you remember that one blue-green crayon that just looked really cool in the Crayola boxes?
The Periwinkle, yeah.
Yeah, that one was my favorite crayon to use because I always thought it made everything look really beautiful with its shading. But don't think that just because Red's over here just tying fishing stuff up, that it's that he's not going to be anything historical, because this is, as I said, a period correct fishing kit with period correct Ziploc bags. Suck it, Smithsonian.
I like this, Red. This is the good tired Red.
This is the Red who just doesn't care anymore. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, come at me, bro. I'm doing this. You guys can do whatever.
Bryce and I run the history.
Red does Red things.
Red does whatever he pleases. Yeah, he ain't no Red. How dare you? Well, you're the resident Red, so we can't remove that. Yeah. That title will never go away, and I'm happy. I'm not gonna lie, I can hear my voice in stream, and it sounds relatively annoying.
But it's very beautiful. All right, you guys carry on. I will be here.
All right.
We have 4 viewers now.
While you're doing that, let us regale you of what today is, besides Victory in Europe Day. It's not just Victory in Europe Day. Today is the anniversary in 1864 of the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse. Now, this is part of the Wilderness Campaign, or some people call it the Overland Campaign. I just like to call it the Wilderness Campaign, just easier. But it's a very, very interesting fight because there was already the fighting in the outskirts of Spotsylvania Courthouse in what is called as the Wilderness. Very brutal fighting, not really a good situation. Soldiers trapped in the thicket of the brush, like just miserable. And I remember Bryce was telling me before, a lot of the soldiers from Wilderness were actually being buried at Spotsylvania just about at the same time, if I'm correct, right, Bryce? Yes. Yes, which is very interesting to think about and consider. But now we're moving on. This is literally the day after the Wilderness ended. Now they're moving on to the Spotsylvania. Robert E. Lee, as rebels have called it, they call it the horseshoe, I believe, right, Bryce? Yes, the mule shoe. The mule shoe. From what I've read, most Union members just call it the Lee's semicircle attack. Trying to quote this from my memory right here. I don't have a book open right now, but yeah, not a very fun battle. Not really a fun battle at the time.
What kind of fighting was it? Was it street?
Well, It was kind of a little of everything. There was a little bit of conventional warfare, some types of trench type warfare also, not like standard World War I, what we're used to, but earthwork type.
Right.
One of the more famous parts of it, called the angle. I think it was Ewell's position. Not exactly sure, but I believe it was Ewell who held the position, and literally it was just it made the Union like one of the most miserable places to be on the field for the Union.
Oh, that's actually good.
Charging at because it was just an angle within the Confederate lines, and literally you charged it and you never made it back. That's just like how awful it was.
Oh, I'm also I'm not gonna lie. Occasionally, I'll chime in with an update of what I'm doing with the fishing.
Bryce has a couple of little tidbits and stories from Spotsylvania. Some might also be from the later battle, Cold Harbor, if I'm correct. So, Bryce, if you would please.
Okay. So what we have are a few first-hand accounts of the fighting. So, the first account is from J.W. Muckley, the regimental adjutant of the 148th Pennsylvania Infantry of the 4th Brigade, 1st Division in the 2nd Corps. This is now of course some of these are small, some of these are long, so this is what Adjutant Muckley wrote about the fighting on the Union side. Passing over the ground inside the works the next day, I was able to appreciate the full measures of its horrors. I shrank from the attempt to describe the scene. It was a ghastly and horrible example of the organized brutality that we call war. No language can adequately portray the sickening spectacle. Imagine, if you can, the line of entrenchment, 400 yards in length, a solid wall of timber and earth forming 8 or 10 pen-like enclosures, half filled with dead and dying men. Lay in piles, sometimes 5 men deep. Often the dead were lying upon the mortally wounded who groaned in their death and agony, begged for water and prayed for dead. Bodies hung upon the works in every form of mangling. Blood and mangling were everywhere, and the sickening stench of the battlefield was over it all. That was his account of the fighting.
It sounded a little juicy. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Cannon. Sorry to hear that. You have my condolences, my friend.
The next account is from Lieutenant John D. Black of 145th Pennsylvania, serving as aide-de-camp to General Francis Barlow from the 2nd Corps. This is his account. In the early morning, just as our line reached the works, Captain Lincoln of the 64th New York and another officer, whose face I did not see, sprang upon the works, cheering the men on. A shot struck the officer, whose face was turned from me, killing him instantly. Jackson, a boy from my own company regiment, not over 17 years of age, touching the works at the same time as seeing the shot fired, turned his gun, it being unloaded, bayonet down, and threw it spear fashion style with "Take that, you rebel son of a b."
He just launched his musket like a spear?
Yes, and he was like not over 17 years of age.
Dude, what a Chad.
Striking the man who had fired the shot just above the heart. The force with which he threw it drove the bayonet entirely through his chest, burying it at least 4 inches of the muzzle of the gun in the breast of the Confederate, who uttered the most unearthly yell I have ever heard from human lips as he fell over backward with the gun sticking in him. About 1 o'clock it rained heavily, and wounded men dragged themselves about drinking of the pools and the hollows. Those who were so disabled as to be helpless lay with open mouths to cool their parched tongues, catching the few drops as they fell. Back to the salient where it was a sinkhole. Into this rain and blood collected until it was full of red water, and around this were 100 men who were dying slowly, drinking and groaning.
Oh my.
Schoolmate and intimate friend of Major Church, both belonging to the 26th Michigan, fell on top of the works that morning. He was the only son of wealthy and indigent parents. Volunteers were called for in the hour of the nation's need. Was among the first to step forward and put his name down, saying he was going as a private and try to make a man of himself. found the remains where they fell. There had been no time to remove them, and they had lain on the top of the works during the entire engagement, and had it been not been for some of the comrades who had seen him fall, identified the place, we would never have recognized it as having been a soldier. There was no semblance of humanity about the mass that was lying before us. The only thing I could liken to it was a sponge. I presume 5,000 bullets had passed through it.
Jeez.
Pretty brutal.
To say the least. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I cannot get over the fact that someone speared their musket.
I mean, but the kid's ballsy. I'll give that.
Yeah. I'd say he's got a pair. And anyone who wants to dispute that can take that up with him.
Next account is from Colonel Edwin C. Manson of the 7th Maine Infantry, 2nd Division of the 2nd Corps. Near this tree were 2 field pieces, horses and men all dead. Across one of the guns hung the body of an artilleryman. Gradually, this body was so cut to pieces by the flying bullets that it slipped from the gun, apparently severed legs from the trunk.
Say that again?
Hand-to-hand conflict. It says right here, gradually his body was so cut to pieces by the flying bullets that it slipped from the gun, apparently severed the legs from the trunk.
Jeez.
Pretty brutal right there.
Yeah.
Hand-to-hand conflicts raged back and forth over the breastworks. In places where the lines came together, the men not only fired into each other's faces, fought with bayonets and clubbed muskets. In some cases, dragging their antagonists over the works, made prisoners if they escaped death by shot or bayonet thrust. The next one is from Lieutenant Robert S. Robertson, an aide-de-camp to Colonel Nelson Miles, commanding the 1st Brigade, the 1st Division, in the 2nd Corps. He said, the horseshoe was a boiling, bubbling, and hissing cauldron of death. Lee's army was hurled against us as we lay hitting the slope of the earthworks, loading and firing at will. 5 successive waves in his effort to retake this. He to his position, but our fire was too hot, and the waves of gray were successfully beaten back with terrible loss. Once a few hundred, with a stand of colors in their furious charge, reached the inside of the works to advance was impossible. Retreat was death, for in the great struggle that raged there were only a few wounded. Muskets and bayonet thrusts were the mode of the fighting for those that used of the cartridges. Frenzy seemed to possess the yelling demonic hordes on either side, as soft-voiced, tender-hearted men sought like wild beasts to destroy their fellow men.
That's a way of showing, hey, these guys are perfectly normal this morning.
Oh, yes. The next account is from Private Edwin C. Jackson of 125th New York Infantry. Someone raised a cry for, and we pressed forward towards the second line of works. Very soon the enemy appeared and charged up to the works, and then it was a hand-to-hand fight over it. We began to determine to hold them as they were to retake them, so that the dead and dying were literally piled and heaped on both sides. A very large book might be written about the many scenes that come under one's observation at such a time, and some of them so peculiar as to cause you to laugh. On several such, I may mention one, that of a man with his head shot off, running for more than a rod.
More than a rod. Did the rod have a dismal twang?
The choice of words there on him seems a little weird.
It occurred early in the day when we had been driven back from the charge on the second line. We were ordered to evacuate all that part of the line down to the west salient. We started across on the jump to a rustle of my company and myself running about a rod apart. Immediately in front of us, a soldier running like ourselves, struck in the head by an artillery shell. His head was cut clean off from his shoulders. We continued to run for a rod or more before he fell.
That's brutal. Update on the hook right quick, on the fishing. Got the hook on. Sorry, carry on.
Okay. Next account is from Lieutenant Colonel Thomas W. Hyde, the Provost Marshal for the 6th Corps. I never expect to be fully believed when I tell what I saw the horrors of Spotsylvania. because I should be lost to believe it myself, were the case reversed. Early next morning, we went to visit the scene of the fighting. The breastworks were of heavy logs and they had traverses. As other short breastworks perpendicular to them to protect from a flanking fire. Rebels were mostly between these traverses, and they lay in 2, 3, and sometimes 4 tiers deep. Lowest tier nearly covered by blood and water. The wounded were often writhing under 2 or 3 of the dead. Nor was the scene where lay the boys in blue less cruel. They were mostly in the open, many nothing but a lump of meat. A clot of gore where countless bullets from both armies had torn them to shreds.
You know what that sounds like to me?
What?
Sounds pretty juicy. I feel like but for real though, I feel like the ground would be very. Oh, after all that bloodshed, it would be like walking in a rain-soaked field.
Basically what it was in a way.
I mean, just imagine that. Just because you would associate that with your childhood, especially in those times. Because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, oh man, this reminds me of back home. Y'all walked around in this much blood back home. The questions of who, where, and
That's a gruesome way of thinking about it.
exactly. It's like you guys did that at home. Look, the who's, why's, where's, and what's it's is not important.
No.
So the next account. Now this one's a little long, so. This is from the diary of Private Clinton Beckwith of the 121st New York Infantry, enlisted at the age of 16 in 1863. Wrote saying, at about 5 p.m., we moved over the works down into the woods, closed up to our skirmishers, the 65th New York, who were keeping up a rapid fire and formed in line of battle. Regiment after regiment came up, formed in line, and we began in the first or front line in the right of the column, 96th Pennsylvania on our left, and the 5th Maine on the left of the 96th. Behind us was the 49th Pennsylvania, behind it was the 43rd New York, and the 2nd Vermont. Including the men of the 5th and 105th Wisconsin, 119th Pennsylvania, and the 6th Vermont Infantry Regiment.
Where's Hemingway? We're talking about Vermont.
Exactly. The rebel rifle pits were about 250 yards in front of our skirmish line. They had no skirmishers out, ours having been being driven from it. They were firing from their breastworks, on top of which they had logs to protect their heads or batteries. On the right and 3 in the rear of us were belching away at them, and they were answering but feebly. Occasionally, the hum of a bullet and the screech of a shell gave notice that they were on the quiver. Interesting word to put it. Okay.
So they're literally fighting basically the force they're fighting is behind broken cover.
Basically, yeah.
It's like, we have this fortress. Do you really, though? I mean, part of a wall is still standing.
As soon as we formed under Colonel Upton, Major Galpin and the adjutant came along and showed to the officers and men a sketch of just how the rebel works were located. We were directed to keep to the right of the road, which ran from our line direct to theirs. It was a grass-grown farm road leading to the main of Carthagena Road, which was the road we wanted to get and hold. We were ordered to fix bayonets, to load and cap our weapons, and to charge at the right shoulder shift. No man was to stop and or assist a wounded comrade. We must go as far as possible, and when we broke their line, face to our right, advance and fire lengthwise of their line. Colonel Upton was with our regiment and rode on our right. He instructed us not to fire a shot, cheer, or yell until we struck at their work. It was nearly sundown when we were ready to go forward. The day had been bright and it was warm, but the air felt damp, indicating rain. The racket and smoke made by the skirmishers and batteries made it look hazy about us. We had to raise our voices to be heard. We waited in suspense for some time. Lord Davenport withdrew my tent and said to me, I feel as though I was going to be hit. If you get my things and send them home, I said. I will, and you do the same for me in case I'm killed. But keep a stiff upper lip. We may get through all right.
I got to get those letters back out. This is... Damn. I mean, you know, I've said it time and time again, but it's unbelievable the way I see it, it's unbelievable that we're reading these words. Like think about who. It's just cool. Carry on. Sorry.
It says right here, shortly after this, the battery stopped firing, and in a few minutes, an officer rode along toward the right as fast as he could. In a moment afterward, word was passed along to get ready, fall in, and then board. I felt my board rise in my stomach, and intestines string together in a knot. 1,000 things rushed through my mind. I fully realized the terrible peril I was to encounter gained from previous experiences. I looked about in the faces of the boys around me, and they told the tale of expected death. Pulling my cap down over my eyes, stepped out the extreme man on the left of the regiment, except Sergeant Edwards and Adjutant Morris, who was on foot. In a few seconds, we passed the skirmish line and moved more rapidly. The officer shouting forward and breaking into a run immediately after we got into the field at a short distance. As soon as we began to run, the men, unmindful of or forgetting orders, commenced to yell, and in a few steps farther, the rifle pits stuttered with puffs of smoke. Men began to fall rapidly, and some began to fire at the work, thus losing a chance they had to do something. When they reached the work to protect themselves, I got all along the right, and there were a number of us in the grass grown unused road. Several were killed immediately, but I could not tell who because I was intent upon reaching the work. They were broken up, some getting through the slashing and the abattis. By this time, the rebels were beginning to fire the second line. A rapid but scattering fire went along the works when we reached another instant. One of our officers in front of us jumped on top of the log and shouted, "Come on, men!" Pitched forward and disappeared, shot and killed. I followed an instant after, and the men swarmed upon me, over the works on each side of me. When I got on top of some Johnnies, jumped up from their side and began to run back. Some were lunging at our men with their bayonets, and a few had their guns clubbed. Jim Johnson, Oakes, and Hassett were wounded by a bayonet. Our squad, an officer with them, was backing away from us. The officer firing his revolver at our men, fired into them, jumped down into the pit, and moved out towards them. Except this time, our second line came up, and we received another volley from the line in front of us, and the battery fired one charge of canister. Colonel Upton shouted forward, and we all ran towards the battery, passing another line of works. And the men in them passed where we were prisoners, ran away after firing into us. Continually, we ran over the battery, hitting it and its men prisoner. And from beyond until there was nothing in our front except some tents by the roadside. There was no firing upon us for a few moments of any magnitude. We looked into the ammunition chest of the battery to see if I could find something to put in the tent of the guns to prevent their being fired again. We had to leave them. There were several of our company there. I remember Jesse Jones and George Davenport, Tony Woodward, Justin A. Chapman, and I think they took the wheels off one of the guns and broke off a twig and the vents of two guns. We were ordered to go to the works and move to the right. Colonel Upton asked for volunteers to make a rush on the rebel battery, but did not get any. The undertaking looked too desperate. He asked for men of the 121st, saying, "There are none of my old regiment here, but there were only a few of us there, and our cartridges were running low. I do not know how long we remained there firing. It seemed like an hour, but I don't suppose it was. Finally, word was passed along to fall back quietly for our skirmish line. Back we started, getting back into the open field. It was covered with dark forms of lying on the ground. Many more moving back. I came at once across the group and recognized them. Parsons of the 50th Maine, who were shot through the ribs. Both bones were crushed and he suffered terrible pain. Between him and another man was a wounded captain, and Parsons said, "For God's sake, help us back with him." Giving the man my gun, I stepped out in front of the captain and catching him by the legs, twisted him as gently as I could upon my back, carried him onto the edge of the woods and under shelter of our skirmish line. There left him with some of his regiment. I kept on trying to find some of our own fellows. Reaching the works we started from, I found one of my companies. Back of the works a little ways, in the edge of the pines where our men were assembling, was 95th Pennsylvania. Occupying these works, less than an hour, began to get some idea of the awful loss we had sustained. I looked around for Davenport, made inquiries, but could not get no tidings of it. I went to the brigade hospital, saw many of our regiments shot in all shapes. The door was not with them. So I was starting back a company man that one of your company is lying in the woods just where we started to charge. I went out to the skirmish line again. There was some firing on the line by the rebels. Some men rooted out in the field, as you could tell by their cries and their groans. And I went out a little way, passing several dead men, to help bring in a wounded man. Realizing how hopeless it was to find door, I came back, cried out, and heartsick, I sat down in the woods. As I saw the desolation and misery around me, my feelings overcame me, and I cried like a little child. After a time, I felt better and went back to camp. I found the men and talked over the charge for a long time. That was his account.
Long account.
That's terrifying.
But we have another account from a Confederate, Captain Jonathan Whiteside Williams of the 5th Alabama Infantry Company D in the Greensboro Guard.
From Captain Clay.
They would terrify the Federals.
Nah.
This is what he wrote on May 10th, 1864, on the battle. Occasional firing was heard the next morning, and at about 10 o'clock, a heavy cannonading commenced. It continued to grow in a terrible fire all through the remainder of the day and would continue until about 9 o'clock at night. At about 5 o'clock that evening, Confederates were suddenly attacking their entrenchments where Dole's brigade was positioned. The Yankees under Colonel Upton had arranged troops, and they had charged right at us. It says right here, first line had loaded and capped their rifles. All the others had only... it's all right if I just skip this part. It's just really the federal thing.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Rebel bias.
It was a crisis of
favoritism.
And for a brief interval, the worst fears prevailed on the part of our men. The enemy poured through the breach, captured quite a number of our boys on the extreme right of Daniel's brigade, pushing the brigade to retire to avoid enfilading fire, causing a temporary loss of 16 guns.
Oh, that's a lot of.
Brigade slowly fell back, firing as it retreated. The enemy advancing and taking position of their abandoned guns. In a short time, they were in a line at right angles to the works. The enemy massing in great numbers in their front. Seemed to the eye of a private soldier that a dangerous crisis was upon them. Suddenly, a single horseman came dashing up to the rear of the 45th North Carolina. He was instantly recognized by the men who saw him as General Ewell. And outstripped his staff officers who were following him, but not then in sight. He halted in the rear of the 45th and called out, "Don't run, boys. They'll have enough men here in 5 minutes to eat up every damned one of them." His eyes were almost green. The line studied and poured volley after volley into the blue coats. Battle's brigade was positioned a few hundred yards north of the Harrison House and about 300 yards south of the breach. Captain Williams... Wait. I've just been...
Watch your lane, guys.
Sorry. Curse me.
That's better.
Heck me.
I see we have angered VA.
Yeah, he'll be all right. I'll get him some. What is it, Matt? What is that one stuff that you really like?
Taylor hat.
Yeah, I'll get him some of that.
Captain Williams of the 5th Alabama saying, the calm was broken by order from General Rose, who had ridden up as close as he could get for Battle's brigade to move forward quick. Our brigade was standing left in front, which placed the 5th Alabama, right regiment, Company D, the right company. Did not take time to form, but went in at a run. When we came out into the open field, someone says, "Which way, General?" And Rose replied, into the pine thicket, and retake those words. Going into this thicket in front, we crossed a little branch bottom. We met a good many artillerymen waving their red caps, yelling, "Charge them, Alabamians, charge them." Company D was now in front, and the fastest runner in front of the company with the rest of Battle's brigade coming as fast as possible. When we passed through the thicket, which I think is not more than 30 yards wide, there was said to be 3,000 blue bellies.
No, the potato Mike strikes again.
Men of the 45th North Carolina Daniel's brigade saw them coming. Presently, we heard a yell up the line in our rear as we stood. Bowles' brigade of Alabamians came down the line by us, and we raised a mighty yell and dashed forward. Bennon Company D of the 5th Alabama took the first fire, and not a man flinched. We halted a few seconds. Seeing reinforcements coming up, moved on, and soon began the bravest fight I ever saw. Not a Yankee bet his body that I could see, and I know our men stood perfectly erect, loaded, and fired. 5th Alabama was now doing the principal fighting. It was melting away before the fire as the snow does before the summer sun. Asked no favors and granted none. We returned shot for shot and yell for yell. As the regiment was being down,
Facts.
men from the brigade would push forward to their place. Every man left was square in front doing
to get this
duty.
guy
They saw their best
balls.
friends shot down. Nothing daunting. Moved forward slow but sure. We could see that when the Yankees fired their guns, we would move back among their men and load. Our men would fire, lower their guns to load, and would push forward to the front and fire once again.
What is that on your belly?
We had the advantage of them as we were fighting at the base of the angle, and the Yankees were in the apex. As we got nearer and nearer to each other, the roar of the musketry and the cheering of the men in the rear was deafening.
That was a noise.
Oh, he does that. That's his thing.
That was interesting.
Oh, watch this. I love you, Jitbug. Look at his eyes.
Oh. He's like, the intent to harm you has increased drastically.
I love you, Jitbug. Love you.
About this time, I heard a man at my side receive an awful blow to the head with a gun. I turned and saw it was one of the men from Dallas County, Company S, trying to kill a prisoner. I caught him by the coat and asked him, "What in the world are you treating that prisoner so for?" He replied, "Captain, he was just in the act of shooting you." Moved on, and when the company from Pickens County, Company H, got to where the Yankees was, he raised himself and shot and killed Lieutenant Smith. That company. I was told that as quick as lightning, 9 bayonets were thrust through the Yankees' body.
Oh! Oh, that would hurt.
The men yelled, "Burn in hell, you Yankee son of a bee."
Thank you for using proper language on screen.
Yes.
We gradually pushed them back until we were about 25 yards from each other. A dense smoke rested over us for a few seconds. When it rose, those Yankees were going back over the works much faster than they came. The regiment made a rush for them, and about 150 of them threw down their guns and surrendered. Probably there were about 50 of them on the other side of the works that could not take the chances of crossing the little open field in front. They crawled back over the works and surrendered to us. I think for the most imprudent Yanks I had ever seen. They were not satisfied with trying to kill us. Their own guns. They were trying to turn our own guns at us. I captured a battery when they captured the people. We pushed them back until they were standing so thick that they could not turn their guns on us. I never heard a cannon that evening. The noise was so great, but I learned after the fight that there were 12 cannon close up to us on one side and 8 on the other, pouring grape in a perfect stream in the rear of those Yankees, cutting off all support from the assaulting forces. As the officer who told me this afterwards said, a hummingbird could not have lived at the edge of that little field in the rear.
Trying to find out about it.
Yes, that's the account from our captain.
I'm still fascinated that dude got stuck by 9 bayonets. That
I'm sorry, continue.
That couldn't have felt good.
No, not at all.
Oh, and do you want to know how he described what the Confederates did to celebrate their victory?
They partied?
Yes.
Very aggressively?
Yes. It says right here, not long after the end of the fighting, a Confederate band solemnly assembled near the works and played Nearer My God to Thee. The Yankee band replied with the Death March, and the Confederates answered with, and our boys answered with the Bonnie Blue Flag, followed by the greatest rebel yell I've ever heard in the whole war.
Damn.
Then the Federals started Then, in response to the Bonnie Blue Flag, the Federals started playing the Star Spangled Banner, and the Yankees also cheered.
Now I gotta admit, okay, the playing the Bonnie Blue Flag was a good, final punch in the face. But then in return, even among all your grief, playing the Star Spangled Banner, I feel like that's a good counterpunch.
Pretty funny. Apparently, the Confederates responded again by playing Home Sweet Home.
I love this. It went from a battle of muskets to a battle of the bands.
Actually, and considering both sides try to murder each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bryce, you know what it was? The musicians were like, man, we never get to fight.
We can fight with the power of music.
So as soon as they heard the Confederates playing, they're like, it's our moment. This is our time.
This is our moment, boys. Let's do it.
We watched too much Djibouti.
It's a good movie. Nonetheless.
Oh, it's like a historical fiction where instead of a battle of muskets, it's a battle of the bands?
Who says it has to be historical fiction?
True.
It'd be good. Yeah, but Spotsylvania. It's one interesting battle to think about.
Dude, people say Gettysburg was hectic. I don't know, because this sounds a lot more. You got people throwing spears, other people getting stabbed by 9 bayonets at once.
People absolutely getting destroyed by cannons and having someone decapitated.
Yeah, their head getting completely taken off by a cannonball. And on top of that, the bands start fighting each other with music.
Exactly.
What could...
Well, another thing you got to focus on is that they're using earthwork type fighting.
This too. They're using... Oh, man. This is... You know what this is looking like in my head? You know the Civil War battlefield in Red Dead 2?
Yes.
Something like that, but just... It's at the end. I can't get over the bands fighting. That's just incredible. Because you know that the infantry and everyone else is oh, you want to let them do that? Really? Oh, we got a song for them.
But is it all right if I read a little something from a book that's not necessarily about the Eastern Theater, but the Western Theater?
Well, Bryce, in the words as I usually say, we'll be able to stop you. No, we won't, so continue.
Hey!
Just bans him from the Discord. He has been stopped.
Can never stop the power of a rebel.
A silly webble wowzer.
Unless you're Ohio fighting Texas.
Unless it's a bunch of breastworks or a stone wall.
No, wait, are we talking about an actual stone wall or Jackson?
Pacific, well, I mean, Pittsburgh stone wall.
So a dead guy, okay.
Essentially, yes. But, so, I'm sure, so, I know I've posted some stuff about a Sam Watkins.
Wondrous Mr. Watkins, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Watkins, old man Watkins' son.
Yes. I will read to you an account of him when he was at the battle of the Battle of Missionary Ridge.
I've heard of this.
To the page.
Such a wonderful battle.
A lot of kinky things happen at Missionary Ridge.
Oh, there goes our PG rating.
Otherwise know if you know of its other name, the Battle Above the Clouds.
That is a legendary battle.
It's actually a part of Chattanooga as well. I'm fairly certain.
It also sounds so mystical, doesn't it? The battle above the clouds. Doesn't that sound mystical as hell?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Fun fact about that: that whole entire battlefield is now an apartment complex.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Now it's the apartments above the clouds.
Yeah.
Less sad.
But this was Watkins' account of the Battle of Missionary Ridge. He says right here, one morning, Theodore Sloan, Hog Mitchell, and I were standing picket at the little stream that runs along at the foot of Lookout Mountain. In fact, I would be pleased to name our Captain Folker and Lieutenant Lansden the guard on this occasion, because we acted as picket for the whole 3 days engagement without being relieved. Haven't been relieved yet, but that battle has gone into history. Heard a Yankee call, "Oh Johnny Red." I started out to meet him as formally when he hollered out, "Go back, Johnny, go back. We were ordered to fire on you." I replied with, "What is the matter? Is your army going to advance on us?" He said to me, "I don't know. We were ordered to fire." So I jumped back into the picket post, and a mini ball ruined the only hat I had.
Damn it.
Not the hat.
You know what? Let's send this man a new hat.
Someone FedEx him a new hat.
Oh, Federal Express. He'll love that. He'll love getting a package from Federal Express.
Actually, he's shooting at the Federals, and somehow a FedEx truck comes. You ordered a hat and looking for a Sam Watkins?
Well, never mind the fact that a dude will be walking up with a purple and green FedEx on his shirt and shorts.
And then Watkins like, "What in the world?
Who are you fighting with?" Well, UPS is pretty bad.
Then he said, another and another followed in quick succession, and the dirt flew up in our faces off our little breastworks. Before night, the picket line was engaged from one end to the other. If you had only heard it, it was, dear reader, it went like 10,000 wood choppers, and the occasional boom of a cannon would remind you of a tree falling. You could hear colonels giving commands to their regiments. You could see very plainly the commotion and the hubbub. But what was up, we were unable to tell. The picket line kept moving to our right. The second night found us near the tunnel, right where two railroads cross each other, or rather, one runs over the other high enough for the cars to pass under. You could see all over Chattanooga, and it looked like myriads of blue coats swarming. He's in Manigill's brigade of Walpole's division got into a night attack at the foot of Lookout Mountain. So this is Joe Hooker celebrated Battle of the Clouds, which no one ever heard of and never had a foundation, only an old Fighting Joe's bad imagination. Dang. Insulting old Joe Hooker, that's not surprising.
Shots fired, man.
Ha ha. I get that.
Yeah,
Shots fired. That's funny.
See what you did there.
Yeah, that's exact. That was a fun fact. That was actually the response after the Confederates fired on Fort Sumter. The guy who lit the cannon yelled at Fort Sumter, "Shots fired!" He's a Chad.
I could see the whole of it. It looked like lightning bugs on a dark night, but about midnight everything quieted down. Theodore Sloan, Hog Mitchell, and myself occupied an old log cabin as the dead. Had not slept for 2 nights and were very drowsy, I assure you. We knew there was something up and we had to keep awake. The next morning, nearly day, I think I had dropped off into a pleasant doze. I was dreaming of more pretty things than you ever saw in your life. And Mitchell touched me and whispered, look, there are 3 fellows. Must I shoot? I whispered back, yes. A bang, a roar, and a shriek. He had got one. Sure, everything got quiet again. We heard nothing more than an hour. But Mitchell looked out. Mitchell touched me and whispered, yonder they come again. Could not see them. I was too sleepy for that. Sloan could not see them either. So pulled down and another unearthly squall rendered the night air. The streaks of day had begun to glimmer over Missionary Ridge, and I could see in the dim twilight the Yankee guards not 50 yards off. Boys, let's fire into them and run. We took deliberate aim and fired at that they raised. I thought a mighty sickly sort of yell and charged the house. Ran out but waited on the outside. We took a second position where the railroads crossed each other, but they began shelling us from the river when we got on the opposite side of the railroad and they ceased. Know nothing about the battle, how Grant with one wing went up the river and Hooker's corps went down Will's Valley, etc. Was fighting and commanding and musketry all day long, but I was still on picket. Balls were passing over our heads, both coming and going. I could not tell whether I was standing picket for Federals or Confederates. I knew that the Yankee line was between me and the Rebel line, for I could see the battle right over the tunnel we had been placed on picket at the foot of the Lookout Mountain. We were 5 miles from that place now. If I had tried to run in, I couldn't. I got separated from Sloan and Mitchell somehow. In fact, was waiting either for an advance of the Federals or to be called in by the captain of the picket. I could see the Yankees barely lining Missouri Missionary Ridge in my rear. The Federals were swarming everywhere, were passing me all day with their dead and wounded, going back to Chattanooga. No one seemed to notice me. They were passing to and fro, cannon, artillery, and everything. I was willing to be taken prisoner, but no one seemed disposed to do it. I was afraid to look at them, and I was afraid to hide, for fear for someone's attention would be attracted toward me. I wish I could make myself invisible. I think I was invisible. I felt that way anyhow. I felt like the boy who wanted to go to the wedding but had no shoes.
Well, VA's got to
about
go,
2 or
boys.
3
He's got an event. Let's all wish him luck and that he loses to the Federals.
Let's see
Good luck,
if you...
VA.
Good luck, VA. Hope you lose.
Union, 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 union.
Onion.
Onion, 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 onion.
Onion.
Wait, guys, let's do it right. Onion, 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 onion. To fight the onion. Could you imagine if Lee said union like that? We'll flank around the onion.
I think this whole army would make fun of them.
General, where will we attack the Federals? We will. We'll just start. It just starts out. We will attack the onion in the center line.
And then it sounds like.
I'm sorry.
You know that one meme? Like, you find Southern gentlemen, you talk me into it, I'm in.
But I mean, right? It's just like right out. What'd you say? We will attack in the center. Is that what you refer to?
And then he's like, we will attack them in the onion. And then they're like, I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. Was something not clear about what I said again? We will attack the onion and be victorious and have our independence.
And then Sal just looks at each other and they're just like, I think he's drunk.
You got Longstreet and Stewart sitting here going, yo, what's up with Lee? And meanwhile, Stonewall's just in the corner reading his Bible. Just, does anybody have any alcohol? All right, keep it away.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I'll drink it.
He'll doing something random.
Yeah. See, I love how I wonder what they would say if they heard the jokes today. They'd be like, what a bunch of a-holes.
They're a bunch of freaks.
They still say, though, Red Ron 328 is a fine channel to subscribe to.
Especially when I offer them some Ohio moonshine. We'd have to be friends.
Well, not Jackson. You know how Jackson stood on that.
No, Jackson, I'd offer him a hand on friendship and a fellow reading of the Bible.
But, Hawkins continued saying, about 2 or 3 o'clock, a column of Yankees advancing to the attack right over where I was standing. I was trying to stand aside to get out of their way, but the more I tried to get out of their way, I was carried forward. I knew not whither. We soon arrived at the foot of the ridge, at our old breastworks. I recognized Robert Banks' old cornstalk house, Mount Horsley's Fort, and an old log house called Fort Horsley. I was in front of the enemy's line and was afraid to run up the ridge, afraid to surrender. They were ordered to charge up the hills. There was no firing from the rebel lines in our immediate front. I kept climbing and pulling and scratching until I was in touching distance of the old rebel breastwork, right on the very apex of Missionary Ridge. I made one jump and I heard Captain Turner, who had the very 4 Napoleon guns we had captured back in Kentucky at Perryville, about number 4 solid, and then a roar, and the next order was limber to the rear. Yanks were cutting and slashing, and the cannoneers were running in every direction. I saw Dave's brigade throw down their guns and break like quarter horses. I was trying to rally them. I heard him say, "Here is your commander," and the soldiers hollow back, "Here is your mule," and bully for Bragg is hell on retreat.
Oh,
That's funny. That's really funny.
dang. You know, Bragg was really loved.
What's actually funny is that the first time that was used was in 1862.
Oh, my Lord.
And in every single battle that the Confederates participated in under Bragg's command, that was the only thing that they said to him.
That makes sense. Okay, yeah, Mister, here's your mule.
The whole army was routed. I ran one on down the ridge, and there was our regiment, the 1st Tennessee, with their guns stacked and drawing rations, as if nothing was going on. Says I, "Colonel Field, what's the matter? The whole army is ready to run. Hadn't you better be getting away from here? Yankees are not 100 yards from here. Turner's battery has surrendered. Dave's brigade, over 3,000 men, has thrown down their arms. And look yonder. There's the stars and stripes," he remarked very coolly.
Got him.
You seem to be demoralized. We whipped them there. We've captured 2,000 prisoners in 5 stands of colors. At this time, General Bragg and staff wrote that Bragg had joined the church at Shelbyville. But he had backslid at Missionary Ridge. He was cursing like a sailor, says he. "What's this? Have you stacked your arms for a surrender?" The colonel said, "No, sir. Take arms, shoulder arms by the right flank, while right march." Just as cool and deliberate as if he was on dress parade. That's a leader.
Compared to Bragg, that's like 20 times better.
Bragg looked scared. He had put spurs to his horse and was running like a scared dog before Colonel Fields had a chance to answer him. Every word of this is a fact. We at once became the rear guard of the whole army. Felt sorry for old Bragg. The army was routed and Bragg looked so terrified, poor fellow. He looked so hacked and whipped and mortified and charged at feet. And all along the line, when Bragg would pass, the soldiers would yell, "Here's your mule, bully for Bragg, he's hell on retreat."
Bully for Bragg.
Bully.
Hey, that should be a sticker. That should be a sticker.
Bragg was a man of good discipline, and he had cultivated the love and respect of his troops by feeding and clothing them better than they were, not executing everybody who had disobeyed him. The result would have been different. More depends on a good general than the lives of many privates. The private loses his life, the general his country. That's quite the saying right there from old Watkins, right there.
What I want to know is how many mules do you think Bragg has been presented?
Probably an entire corps.
Do you think he was called them, or do you think he was mistaken for them? Really?
Like, do you think like someone said, "I lost my mule," and Bragg like rode up on his horse, and someone's like, "Mister, there's your mule."
That old North Carolina guy we hate.
Guys, come on. We're all in the Confederacy together. Hey, calm down.
Calm down there, General.
And then he wrote saying, "As soon as the order was given, my best friend from childhood, Tom Webb, was lying on the battlefield, shot through the head, his blood and brain smearing his face and clothes. And he's still alive. He was a brave and noble man as our Heavenly Father, and his infinite wisdom ever made. Everyone loved him. He was a universal favorite of the company and the regiment. Brave and generous, and never anxious to take some other man's place where there was any skirmishing or fighting to be done. We didn't wish to leave the poor fellow in that condition, and A.S. Worsley, Bob Holmes, and Tennessee Thompson, myself, got a litter and carried him on our shoulders through the livelong night back to Chickamauga Station. Next morning, Dr. J.E. Dixon of Deschler's brigade passionately told us that it would be useless for us to carry him any further. It was utterly impossible for him to ever recover. The Yankees were then advancing and firing upon us. What could we do? We could not carry him any further. and we couldn't bury him because he was still alive. Even there, we thought best. We took hold of his hand, over him, and pressed our lips to his hand. And all four of us, we kissed him goodbye and left him to tender mercies of the advancing foe. In whose hands he was in a few moments. No doubt they laughed and cheered the dying rebel.
No.
No matter not what they did, for poor wet spirit before the sun went down was with God and the holy angels. But given his all to his country, oh how we missed him. It seemed that the very spirit and life of the company died with the death of good, noble, and brave Webb. And I thank God that I am no infidel, and I feel and believe I will see Tom again. Says sure and certain reader, as you are reading these lines, I will meet him up yonder. I know I will.
Oh, that's gut wrenching right there. Looking down, seeing your childhood friend and his brains splattered all over, and the only thing you can do is kiss his hand goodbye and leave him. That's, with that being said, are there some symptoms that can follow that, Matt?
You want me to do them? Give me 1 second. Just 1 second. Here we go. Shall I do them tonight, Redley?
Unless Bryce wants to.
Bryce, you want to do them?
Do what?
Oh, yeah, that's right. You weren't here for that. You want to do the outro?
I guess.
You know the sayings and everything. Oh my goodness, Bryce, you gotta fix that stat, man.
I agree with VA. Let's get so fun to me to get Bryce a new mic. Because Bryce, that mic's about had it, bud.
Yeah, it has, really. Yeah, you know what, I'll just do it. I already have it written down, alright? Let's make it easy. Alright? Alright. Let me get my cue ready so we can end this on a strong note, right? You need yourself like 2 seconds so I don't get static. Thank you. You want like a big feel or do you want like a regular?
You know what? You do it your way this tonight.
Alright, and I'm gonna add on one more channel tonight for the sake of it.
Sure.
Alrighty. There are a few channels I want to shout out from my pal Red Runner 328. We have General Cody HD, Calibrated Core, Brandon F, Company D, Second United States Sharpshooter, Civil War Digital Digest, The Townsend, and one of the newer ones, the American Battlefield Trust. I highly recommend you go check them out. If you want to see not just Civil War history, you will also get French and Indian War, War of 1812, Rev War, all the way up to even the Indian Wars. You'll get like everything you could ever want. So I highly recommend. Go subscribe to them. They're a really great channel. And finally, our sponsor of this video, CNC Cutlery, the go-to for all your Civil War needs. Real great guys. You know, we of course, Redley uses a majority of their products, and so do Bryce and myself. So highly recommend them. Go check them out.
Also, Matt, let's say if I wanted to go someplace, like if I was watching a live stream and I wanted to go over there real quick, what could I do?
Type in American Battlefield Trust on YouTube and you'll be able to find them. Or CNC Cutlery. You can also go into the link in the description and find them there.
There's also, I believe there's also a couple other links down there. Another one to our Discord, I think, and the Patreon, which, speaking of Patreon, this tool kit thing, whatever you want to call it, will be used in an upcoming video. It'll be the first video sponsored by my patrons on Patreon. Because of them, I got this. And I thank them immensely because I'll be able to do one of my favorite things at reenactments now, which is fishing. And that'll make me happy beyond belief. And I know there's going to be no way I'm going to be able to repay the favor and the kindness that they've done with this alone. But from the bottom of the heart, I thank my patrons for it. I'm still trying to comprehend the whole thing, you know, that people did that they were that nice. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. And Bryce, wonderful, wonderful history as always.
Mm-hmm. You can unmute yourself now.
Wait, Bryce, we want your static again.
Yeah. And if any of you'd like, most of us will be on the Discord afterwards if you'd like to chat or something.
Oh yeah. But as for now, Liberators, see you guys the next time.